All right. I think we'll go ahead and get started now. Welcome to the End Market Opportunity Assessment Report Summary webinar put on by the CEDC and RRS. Today, we're going to give you a short introduction of the Circular Economy Development Center, also known as the CEDC or the Center for short. And then we will be moving into a summary of the report that RRS has conducted for us on end market opportunities in Colorado. And from there, we'll move into a short poll and end with a Q&A session with the 5 panelists sitting on camera here. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Lori Johnson, who's the founder of Circular Colorado and director of the CEDC.
Great.
Lori?
Thanks, Cleo. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're super excited for this webinar, long-awaited gap analysis or end market analysis. So I am Lori Johnson. As Cleo said, the Circular Economy Development Center was created back in July, about a year and a half ago, so a year ago in July. Circular Colorado has the contract with the state and funded by the Colorado Circular Communities Enterprise Fund. So we thank you for that funding to create a center, as we'll call it for short, which we did in about the first 6 months, and then run it. And that's what we're up to now. So the Circular Economy Development Center, it's not a huge center. So just to dispel kind of what the name says, it is a diverse center with a small office here just north of Denver, and then 3 satellite offices. So we have an office down in Colorado and Springs and Pueblo, out in Grand Junction in partnership with the Business Incubator. And we're super excited today to announce our 3rd satellite location will be in Southwest Denver. So in the Durango, Cortez, Dolores area. And that office should kick off here near the end of November. So look for that. So this end market, this gap analysis, this end market analysis was really helpful to us. We had a really good idea of the materials we wanted to focus on here in Colorado, having been in the industry, a bunch of us for a number of years here. However, what this did for us, and RS did a great job, is really helped us hone in on some really detailed. So like plastics, and you'll hear Risa from RRS as she presents tell you about this when we look at colored HDPE. So plastics is a really broad subject. When we talk about textiles, honing in on, are we going to focus on the infrastructure or the end market piece, or both? Construction and demolition. What are the materials that we really want to focus on? So this end market analysis helped us a lot, helped us to hone in. Right now, we've got about 6 major projects going on with the Circular Economy Development Center. You can find those on the website, which will be referenced at the end of this at coloradocedc.org. So you can take a look there, and feel free to reach out to us anytime after this webinar as well, if you have ideas, thoughts on materials. So last thing I want to tell you is kind of what we do. So the Circular Economy Development Center kind of does it all, soup to nuts, we like to say, as far as circularity goes. We're doing everything from helping manufacturers or processors with site selection, environmental compliance support, things like stormwater, air emissions, vetting out technology to keep Colorado citizens and environment safe as far as processing technologies go, working with manufacturers to identify the recycled inputs that are available here in Colorado, especially how much, so that they know whether or not they can make a go of it in terms of replacing virgin inputs with recycled content. And then from there, we work on transportation. We'll have another webinar you'll see throughout the year here in Colorado on the Circular Transportation Network that we have recently organized to go out through Colorado and pick up recyclables that right now are going to the landfill due to the cost of transportation. So that's super exciting. And we'll bring them all back down in Pueblo to a transload site and get them preferably to a market here in Colorado. If there is not a market in Colorado for the material, then you best believe we're working on it. And in the meantime, we'll aggregate that material and then get it to market via truck, or even better yet, via rail. for a less carbon impact. So we work on the transportation, like I said, and then that takes us to the manufacturing. We are recruiting manufacturers all across the country that might want to do business here in Colorado. We're super fortunate to have Colorado Circular Communities, or C3 Enterprise Fund, to kind of help with some of that capital expense to get going here in Colorado and get us over some of the hurdles as far as our geography and some of the challenges of doing business in Colorado. And then we work with them after that for their finished goods on end of life. Really important to the center is to make sure that if somebody is going to make a product out of recycled content, that we understand the end of life of that product. Can you take it back? How do you take it back as far as collection goes? And can you reutilize 100% of that product back into another new good to, again, complete that circle? And we work on the transportation again there as far as distribution and collection. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. We're super excited to have this complete here in year 2. And so I'm going to turn it over to Risa and let her do an overview.
Thanks so much, Lori. We were so pleased to be selected to do this work with the center, and it's been really interesting research that I think set some good groundwork for the work moving forward. So excited to share that with y'all today. So I'm just going to walk through a pretty high-level summary of the research that we did, and looking forward to some discussion and Q&A with the panel once we're through. So we did this end market opportunity assessment, and the goal of the project was to look to see if we could identify end market development prospects with the potential to increase circularity in Colorado. And so in order to do that, we looked at 4 different things. First, we mapped the end markets in the region. So we looked at end markets within Colorado, and then also end markets within a 500-mile radius of Denver. And then also we looked at the Western United States, and we'll show you some of the results of that in a minute. Sort of concentric circles approach to what end markets exist already. We also looked at the manufacturing landscape. So what kind of manufacturing activities are happening in Colorado? What are the scale of those operations? What feedstocks are they using, et cetera? And what opportunities does that create for circularity within Colorado? The third piece was the end market screening. So we looked at 26 different materials and material categories and did an end market evaluation of sort of strengths and weaknesses in terms of the opportunities for end market development within or near Colorado. And then we identified 4 key prospects for Colorado and for the center to evaluate moving forward. So in terms of our methodology to map the end markets, we at RRS host a database that we've developed over decades, really, of that's based on our internal subject matter expertise, also interviews with subject matter experts, tours of facilities, and that sort of thing. So the end market mapping really comes out of our database and our expertise in the industry. In terms of manufacturing landscaping, the manufacturing landscape, we looked at, we compiled a comprehensive database using the sources that you see on the screen here, and then we supplemented that through interviews, through attendance at events, and through literature review to make sure that we had a really comprehensive view of manufacturing in Colorado. As we did the end market screening, we looked again at those 20-some categories to rate them for suitability for market development. We created a number of criteria to judge the different materials against, and then using quantitative data available publicly as well as qualitative information based on our knowledge and understanding of the marketplace, we did a comprehensive evaluation, which we'll show you the results of in a minute. And then when we looked at the core prospects, we did more detailed research on the materials identified, utilizing, again, our internal knowledge and expertise on the national landscape, and then additional research and interviews targeted specifically at the Colorado landscape. So as we look at end markets, probably not surprising to folks, the sort of teal color here is the end markets within Colorado. You have a couple glass markets, a metals market. Within 500 miles of Denver, you have more glass, metals markets and a few paper markets, but the plastic and carton markets are more far-flung. So key point being here, local end markets are scarce in Colorado and in the region, tend to be focused on the coasts and for some materials in the Midwest. And generally, markets develop either in proximity to where materials are generated, so those are large population centers, or where the ultimate end users are. So for example, you see a lot of PET recycling in the Southeast US, where there's a textiles industry that uses polyester fiber utilizing rPET. So this is what the end market database looks like. You can see this circle is the 500-mile radius, and you can see outside of that radius kind of what the Western US markets look like. A lot of plastics markets when you get onto the West Coast, and some in Texas. And again, more paper and more really of all of the material categories as you go a little bit outside of that 500 mile radius. Moving on to the manufacturing landscape, as I mentioned, we compiled a database and then conducted interviews and attended events and such to do further analysis, really looking at where there were opportunities for circular manufacturing. And what we mean there is opportunities to keep materials in use for as long as possible, by either designing for reuse or utilizing recycled material. Through our research, we found some significant challenges to manufacturing circularity. One, Colorado businesses tend to be small. 80% of the manufacturers have fewer than 50 employees, and so tend to be in the small business category. Next, the importance of quality and consistency. For any manufacturing business, it's important to be able to plan on your material and your feedstocks. And any of you in the recycling business know that post-consumer material can be inconsistent and challenging from a quality perspective. And so that's definitely a challenge. And for smaller manufacturers, I think even a greater challenge than for some of the bigger players. Most of the, or many of the manufacturers in Colorado are not participating in the circular economy at this point. There are certain sectors where that is much more challenging to do, like meat packaging, like aerospace, biomedical, semiconductor, very, very high quality specifications, which create challenges for circular manufacturing. And the other thing being that some of the biggest manufacturers in Colorado aren't actually manufacturing in Colorado. They have their corporate headquarters in the state, but their manufacturing is outsourced to other locations. Nonetheless, there are opportunities for circularity in Colorado. We found that about 25% of the manufacturers in Colorado either are using or could use, participate in the circular economy, meaning use secondary materials. That's more than 1,600 companies with more than 60,000 jobs. Of the businesses that are currently participating in the circular manufacturing world, we have beverage packaging, bottling, canning, sheet metals, plastic products, newspaper, and concrete. So those are all really valuable additions there. And then the more common materials that could be incorporated in terms of circularity are things like construction and demolition materials, everything from concrete and clean wood to reusable, durable materials, glass, plastics, metals, and possibly textiles. So this is the summary of our screening effort, and you can see at the top the 4 items that that were identified for further research: tires, colored HDPE, plastic, clean wood, and textiles. And you can see there's sort of a gradation here from items that have low opportunity, those are the ones that are in red, to items that have high opportunity, those are the ones that are in dark green, with that sort of orangish yellow being medium. And so you can have a sense here of the, and again, some of these are qualitative factors, some of them are quantitative. And of course, some are more important or impactful than others, but it gives you a sense of the range of outcomes of the analysis. So we looked at greenhouse gas emissions, we looked at value, and as we were looking at material value, we looked at a couple things like, is the bale price high? Is it a valuable secondary material? And also, what is the relationship between the secondary material value and virgin material value? Is it in a good competitive spot against virgin materials? The next factor was costs, so that included capital as well as some handling and other recovery costs. Supply, how much of that material is available in Colorado, and that sort of thing. And then is there an opportunity for co-location? Could you actually process and get it to an end market efficiently? So again, this gives you the overall framework for how we looked at things, and you can see the 4 that are at the top clearly have a lot of green, which identifies a lot of the opportunity that we saw after completing this evaluation. So we looked at clean wood, waste tires, colored HDPE, and textiles. Looking at tires, there are a lot of tire materials landfilled in Colorado. And Colorado has one of the highest stockpiles of scrap tires. So from a supply perspective, there's a lot of material available there. There's also a well-established collection network for those materials. But the ability to develop those end markets in state has really been around the underlying economics and the demand for recycled products made from scrap tires. So that's really limited the support for that secondary processing infrastructure. So the opportunity here is to look at diversifying the manufacturing output, so processing tires into a variety of different end products, chip, chrome, etc., and then growing and scaling those end uses as well as tire reuse, those recycling end uses as well as reuse within the state. As we look at textiles, increasingly a target because it's the fastest growing waste stream in the United States. And you can see very significant volumes of material being generated in Colorado, very limited infrastructure beyond sort of your drop-off donation programs, and a real opportunity to bolster regional reuse and also potentially recycling with emerging businesses within the state. Looking at colored HDPE plastic, there's not as much of this material as compared to tires or textiles, but also an important material category, and the EPR for Packaging program will increase the collection and sorting of this material within the state. There's a lot of different end uses for colored HDPE and durable products, things like drainage pipes, shipping pallets, that sort of thing. And so real opportunity here to take advantage of the collection that will be supported through the EPR program and get more of this material recycled and remanufactured in state. And then looking at clean wood, again, this is a really large stream. And we're looking at clean wood here. So typically that requires pretty minimal material preparation and handling. The challenge here has been the limited demand for finished products and infrastructure for separation of this material from the construction and demolition stream to meet end markets. And the opportunity here is really to take that clean wood and process it for a variety of end uses, one of which could be, chipping as a bulking agent, for food waste recovery, for example, or other reuse and recycling opportunities. So that's the bulk of our analysis. As we move into the next steps here, I think there's an opportunity for the center as things move forward to look further into material supply chain, to visit potential sites for recovery and suppliers and users, to really do that direct end market outreach and to continue the research and market development efforts for both the 4 key materials we talked about and others on that list that offer opportunity. So this is our contact information. I'll leave this up here for just a second. And of course, this is going to be recorded and slides will be shared. So feel free to reach out to any of us, myself, Katie Rickey, and Corianne Mansell. We're all on the panel. As you have questions on the report in retrospect after considering things after this discussion, and we'd be happy to support moving forward. And now we will move on to the poll questions.
Yes, thank you, Risa. Appreciate all of the details. If you have any questions for Risa or any of what you heard about the report, please enter them into the Q&A and we will get to them after this poll. So next we've got poll questions. So there's a QR code on your screen to scan, as well as believe we're going to drop the link into the chat to join by web if you prefer that option. And there's just 3 questions for you to answer so that we can get to know you better as the audience. And if you do, the last question is around end market opportunities. And if you do have ideas after this webinar that you don't submit, please feel free to reach out at info@circularcolorado.org and share those ideas with us. So we'll give you a couple minutes to complete the survey and then we'll jump into the Q&A.
All right, Cleo, let me know when you want me to advance here.
Do we, I guess we can go ahead and move forward and see the responses we've received.
Oh
no.
Keep going, 2 more.
2 more? Okay. Should I leave this up, Katie?
I will go ahead and take over the screen share and share the web view.
Great. Sorry about that, folks.
All right, no problem. All right, so you can go ahead and view We had for the
Nice.
first question, we had a lot from Colorado, but it looks like we are having very good response rate. A little bit of a word cloud. Plastics is a very high one up there. Textiles still a lot of interest there. C&D was taking up the lead for a while.
Great. So I think we'll keep this open for a little while. Is that correct, Katie?
Yes, yeah, we'll leave the survey you can always return back to answer additional questions, or always, of course, reach out to the email address that I have shared if you have any recommendations.
Wonderful. Thank you. So now we're going to move into our Q&A, and we've got our panelists here, including Lori Johnson from the CDC, Risa from RRS, as well as Katie and Corey Ann, who were the lead researchers on the assessment. So we do have a few questions coming in, so I will get us started. First off, there was a question about, I think this will be for the RRS team, of there's a plastic processor directly in the city of Denver who processes pellets and other plastics for reuse, and they're supplied to businesses in the region who post consumer plastics or post-consumer blends in the metro region. Did you count them?
Yes, and I believe I know who you're talking about. I don't recall their name at this very moment, but we are familiar with them. One of our team actually did talk to him for this venture. For the end market mapping portion, he was not included in the map itself because the bounds of that map was strictly MRF material, and he was not taking much, if any, MRF material at that time. But he was included in the end markets for the matrix portion of the project.
All right. Then we have another question regarding the material screening that was conducted. For the CapEx costs, does the green mean high costs or low costs?
Yes, so the matrix across the board, we kept it as simple as possible, as green means good, red means bad. So for a high CapEx cost, that would be a red, because that would be a excessive cost to the area. And for things like value of recycled material, if that was a high value, that was green. So green CapEx was low CapEx.
Hey, thank you. Next, we have a question regarding whether people can get the names of glass manufacturers referenced in Colorado in the report.
Yes, I pulled that up very quickly, so sorry, that'll be me again. But we had several glass in Colorado, including Rocky Mountain Bottle, Clear Intentions, Momentum Recycling, and Owens.
And I believe Momentum is now glass to glass.
Oh, yes. Okay. Purchased.
Yes, great. Thank you. Next question is, how did the study weigh the different categories of supply and market, transportation, et cetera?
So, as you could see from the slide, we gave each a ranking in each category. And it was sort of a cumulative look at how the category ranked across the board. So we didn't say, that this number, this column is worth more than this column, but it was more of a cumulative look at how it ranked across the board in the different categories. I know, Katie, if you want to add any more on the specific methodology there.
Yeah, how Risa put it was great. Cumulative look at the whole categories, and the I think what you're asking about though is the weighing of the categories. We did have a level of importance to each category that we looked at. That was reviewed and went over very closely between RRS and Circular Colorado to look at what areas are most important. For example, one of the highest areas of importance was the feedstock needs as well as the CapEx costs. Those were weighted fairly highly in our evaluation, and then those were all averaged together. So you have a really holistic look for each category as well as each area of interest.
Thank you. So the next question is regarding the colored HDPE. So did you take the commercial empty motor containers into consideration? Perhaps motor oil?
I'm
Okay.
trying to remember. Yeah, I think it's automotive products are typically, automotive fluids are typically packaged in colored HDPE. And I don't know if the data that we had was specific enough to pull that out. Katie, was it? I
And
don't
I'll
think
jump
so.
in, you guys, if you don't mind. So,
Sure.
and we'll say more about this at the end, Cleo and I. The CDPHE has already done an exploratory call with someone who processes those, which is our first step into determining whether or not a project is feasible for us to take on as the center. And so when we look at things, I think a lot of this end market analysis is really focusing on like curbside and recyclables, plastic, aluminum cans, plastic bottles, glass bottles. But the CEDC really has a really high focus on commercial and industrial products as well. So what we're talking about here, motor oil bottles, because of the volume. So if you have specific questions about any other material, reach out to us directly because we're probably looking at
it. So on the topic of, for Lori, around the CEDC, we have a question around, can we explain more about the efforts to expand local and innovative end uses?
We can. So that process I just talked about for the inquiry, local is really important, right? Especially when we talk about C&D, because we're not transporting that really by truck or train due to the weight. But also we have a local company here called Driven Plastics. You can read about them a little bit on our website, who is taking film, a lot of plastic film that had been going to landfill. So like I mentioned before, when we talked about the Circular Transportation Network, CTN for short, because we all like acronyms, we right now are in the process through that of driving, pun intended, as much film as we can collect to that local company here. One of the challenges, as you all may know, is sometimes we find folks that have solutions, but right now they're not operating at a level where they could take the throughput that would be needed. And so that's another point of entry that we work with them on scaling. So yeah, our first choice, recycled and remanufactured, used in Colorado. If we can't do it in Colorado, then we're searching in this region. The CEDC is working essentially on an 8-state region plus North Texas because there's a lot going on there and it's a huge trucking lane. So think about every state that touches us in any way is included. And that's a big reason we have a focus on rail. So local to us means Colorado first and then regional.
And then do you want to also talk a little bit about how the CEDC, if we're considered consultants, or how that works?
Yeah, actually, that question that I read too, I think might have also be referring to RRS. So I'm happy you gave me that one because I wanted it. So RRS is a suite of consultants, really well-versed in Colorado and well-versed across the nation, with subject matter experts in just about every material you could think of and circularity. So yes, they are consultants, but we work hand in hand with the CEDC, us all being local, not consultants. We are actual executors and operators and facilitators in the CEDC, working with RRS to get this study done. So it was a hybrid, but the beauty about this was it allowed us to access and take advantage of everything RRS has done and does already actively across the country and in Colorado.
Great, thank you. RS, did you want to add anything, or are you?
I think that's good.
We're just happy
Appreciate
to
the
be
Okay.
endorsement,
wonderful.
Lori.
Absolutely. We love it. Love working with you guys.
All right. So the next question we have around whether products are safe to recycle versus should be removed from use. For example, tires can contain um, some toxins that could be of concern and may not be the best fit for certain end markets. How does the CEDC evaluate that?
I'm probably going to take that one too. So we are really fortunate. I didn't put up the slide today of the in-depth expertise and knowledge on the CEDC, but we retain a contract staff, an environmental health and safety contract staff. Her name is Laura Davis, over 40 years experience. She knows environmental, chemical, you name it. So we have her vet everything out with us, and if we need additional expertise, we go get it. But something like tires, right now, as far as I know, there's nothing else to put on your car to get around. So we have to deal with them today. We understand some of the risks. We know that right now, most tires are here in Colorado are going to tire-derived fuel, not what we would deem at the center as the highest and best use. And so we're working on solutions for that. You'll see another project on our website, Pretread, who is taking those tires and making them into a molded product that is looking to be a substitute for cement or concrete barriers, with cement being one of the higher greenhouse gas emitters in terms of production. So we look at everything that way. We look at it from a realistic lens on, is it a product we can just take out of the market today, like completely, or is it something that we have to work our way towards a better solution? So again, tires being a main one, and then really when you look at a lot of plastics and other things, we're taking it on as realistically as we can.
So in the same vein, I would say there is a question about if end use consumption is a consideration to plastic circularity. They referenced Driven Plastics down in Pueblo, where they're putting plastic film as an additive into hot melt asphalt. So I would like to say I can answer that one, that absolutely end use consumption is a huge piece of the circularity solution that we try to build out. We are, as the CEDC, we're not able to, fully set up a circular solution without an end market, at least one end market, sometimes multiples, to have backups for that material that's going to be produced through the recycling process.
Yeah, and so, because I'm going to chat about it all, but if we could add to that as far as hot mix asphalt and what's going on, so it's really important to get the whole landscape. And like Cleo's saying, we have to have a market. So we have a market. Well, if you look at Driven Plastics, phenomenal Colorado company, they've tested on NCAT, which is the national testing track. They're paving roads, not just in Colorado, but all across the country. So right now in hot mix asphalt, there are other additives that go into HMA or hot mix asphalt that also contain polymers. So I think the perception sometimes is, hey, we're just throwing plastic in the roads. And that's what the CEDC, one of our functions is to vet these things out in depth and research, and really see if there's anything of concern there. And so that's one thing that we did in depth with Driven Plastics before we took them on as a project. And so we had to become experts in hot mix asphalt and paving, not just plastics. So just as an example, and if you want to learn more, always you can reach out to us.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this one is shifting to textiles. What are the concerns with the environmental impacts of textile recycling that are being considered in the report, I believe is being referenced?
The report is really just a really high level look at supply and demand and potential opportunities for textiles recovery, focusing really mostly on reuse for Colorado. So I don't think we got into the depth on some of the questions that's raising. We can we do have a textiles recovery white paper that RS has produced, and there's other resources out there on the benefits and challenges with textiles recycling that we could share. But in terms of this analysis, it was very high level, so we didn't get into that detail yet.
Thank you. The next one is around C&D, or construction and demolition waste. So Habitat for Humanity collects thousands of tons yearly of building materials such as windows, doors, pavers, tile, toilets, wood, etc. That would otherwise end up in the landfill, and they sell it through their restore. Is there funding available to further enhance Habitat for Humanity's programming?
I think I'll take that probably. So let's talk about how this is a kind of a reuse end market for some construction, demolition, and just housing type, materials. What the CEDC is working on is the entry point for that. So that would be a C&D recycling center or a sorting facility. This parlays right there with clean wood as well, right? You can't get something somewhere unless you can obtain it first. And many of you have probably heard of Perks Deconstruction with Anna Perks, who's doing a great job of salvaging toilets, whole garages, fixtures, cabinets, you name it, and putting that in that stream. One challenge though that we do find is how much they can actually take to resell. And so then what do we do with that material? Obviously, reuse is one of our first choices, but then we also have to look at scale. If we're going to implement something, how would we do that at scale with porcelain from toilets, wood, clean wood, painted wood, treated wood, asphalt shingles, another material that we're working on, and all of those things. And again, what's the piece missing right now in this loop for us is the infrastructure for sorting.
Great. And to expand on that, could you talk a little bit more about C3 funding in general and who's eligible and how that program works?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So C3, Colorado Circular Communities Enterprise Fund, it comes out of now a blend of the Front Range Waste Diversion Board Enterprise and the RREO, Recycling Resources Economic Opportunity Grant. A lot of acronyms. And the beauty about C3 is that enterprise fund is now statewide, whereas it was designated in statute only for the Front Range initially. And so there's funding there. It's the fund originates from a $2 a ton tip fee at the landfill and goes into the enterprise and is available for grant making, particularly for circularity, for recycling, processing, infrastructure. We need these investments to help leverage Colorado. We're on a bit of a geographic island. Most people have probably noticed we don't have a port, nor do we have a big ocean. And we've got these beautiful things called the Rockies to the west of us that are really hard to get over in the winter. And if you go east, you just drive, and you drive, and you drive. So some challenges for us. So what this does, C3 and CEDC works to help folks take advantage of this and give some guidance, but they also just run a grant program, is it helps leverage manufacturers to come here to Colorado, or the folks that are here, it leverages them to scale to the point where we need them to be for throughput to deal with all these materials end of life. And so there's a new board that just kicked off in October. Those meetings are public, so you can go to the website, and maybe we'll get that to post for you because it was coloradoforward.org, and I think it's Colorado C3 now. And then you can also look on the CDPHE's website to get more information about the actual board members and how that came about.
Right, thank you. And then can you speak a little bit more towards what would make someone eligible to work with the CEDC to go for funding?
Yeah. So the CEDC, our relationship to C3 and CDPHE is really, we're out here to bring together really large projects. Just because someone works with the CEDC doesn't give you automatic access to grant funds. The CEDC is here to work on specific criteria for directly proposing something to the C3 Enterprise Fund. We work on solutions like the Translo, the CTN that I explained earlier. We work on projects where there's multiple collaborators, okay, not just one company. a large problem where time is of the essence. We work on public-private partnerships. And basically, if you've heard me talk, you've heard this before. We're like the quarterback if you like sports, the nucleus if you like science. And we're that entity that sometimes we architect the solution. So we did that for the CTN. We said, okay, what could we do? We've got a trucking company, a transload. We've got BNSF, the rail. We've got the county of Pueblo, some other recyclers, recycling partners in plastics and other materials. And we architected this CTN. And then we took that project to the C3, or it was forward at the time, for funding. And then we stay with the project. And so the beauty of it is a little bit more enhanced than just a grant program. We vet everything out ahead of time, and then we stick with it, right, to make sure that those funds, us being good stewards of public money, that those funds are being used accordingly as they should, that the project is viable, that it will be successful. And if they need technical assistance with operations, business development, finance, technology, environmental compliance, we're there to work with them. And so what happens with the CEDC is on our website. Leo may have put it in the chat, I might have missed it, is there's a form that you could fill out if you think that you have a project that might be good for the CEDC. So it would be something that's more complex than just one company that, say, wants to add some equipment, which is important, but it would be a comprehensive solution to address a large waste stream.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then just a quick question that was in the chat is, does Colorado have a list of proctors that can help get federal grants? Do you know?
Well, if someone's interested in the federal grant, so we are working with a group right now looking at an EPA grant for a potential waste campus. So I would say the best idea would be to reach out to us, tell us kind of what you're looking at, and then we'll either help or point you in the right direction.
Thank you. All right. So this one is a general question. I'm not sure if RRS wants to take it, but has a waste characterization study been done on the MSW landfills in Colorado?
Yes, that was what some of the evaluation came from. I believe, Risa, if I'm not wrong, we may have done that one. In I believe it was 2018 or 2019, there was a full characterization done.
Okay, and then on this topic of tires still, what source was used for the Colorado tire numbers that are landfilled?
Did it all come out of the waste comp study? I thought it did, but we can double check that.
Okay.
And the numbers that we use for the CEDC, we're really lucky in Colorado to have a waste tire fund and a rebate and a program, an incentive program. We're lucky to have some folks at CDPHE who specialize in tires. And so we are working alongside or parallel with them, or always check in with them in terms of that landscape of tires, because things change a lot year to year.
Yeah.
And then also for the RRS team regarding the textile waste, the numbers in the report look like they were calculated based on what was sent to landfill. Did it also include incineration and what is shipped overseas?
I don't think so. I think we were looking just at what was going to disposal. And you guys don't have incineration in Colorado, do you? As a disposal option? So yeah, that wouldn't be factored in.
Thank you. And then we had another question come in around, is there any studies available around gasification or SAF that you know of?
There certainly are studies out there on gasification. I'm not familiar with SAF. Do you know what that refers to, Katie? But there's certainly lots of studies out there on different conversion technologies and their impacts and capabilities. Not anything that we did for this report, though.
Okay. Oh, it stands for Sustainable Aviation Fuel.
Bright, like, yeah,
Sorry.
bright mark and that sort of thing. Yeah, I believe there have been some life cycle studies done, but it's not something that we've had a role in.
So I will jump on there too and say, again, another of the roles of the CEDC. I like to kind of call us one of the gatekeepers of Colorado. So when folks start asking about chemical recycling, pyrolysis, gasification, all of those things, we've had more than half a dozen projects that we've looked at so far with the CEDC. To vet those out, we do that pretty in depth. So again, if you're thinking of anything, I would reach out to us.
All right, now one back for you, Lori, around the CEDC and how the CEDC is considering the geography of the circular economy and how we consider working with manufacturers whose market is regional or Colorado consumers, not national and global opportunities, and kind of looking at that more local landscape and how we assess the implications of fossil fuel and emissions associated with long and short distances to supply chains.
Yep, good one. I think we addressed a little bit of this before when we talked about the transload. And so when I mentioned those trucks that are going to go out all throughout Colorado and really neighboring states, just within reason to collect these materials that are going to landfill, the idea, and they'll collect multiple materials on one truck. And the idea is to bring them back and aggregate them until we preferably have a rail car load full of those. Rail being much better in terms of carbon impact than trucking. But again, you have to weigh that impact, right? As far as, is it worth the transportation? And it's going to come down to transportation most of the time, as far as the impact. And then Colorado, to reference the manufacturer piece of that, if I'm a manufacturer and I want to come to Colorado, we only have about 5 million people. So even if I have the inputs here, I'm probably not going to be able to sell all my product in Colorado with our population. So what does that look like then to get the rest of my finished goods to market, and where is my market? So we look at all of these things. We look at EPDs, environmental product declarations. We look at life cycle analysis, everything around impact for carbon and for circularity. And again, it's material by material, product by product that you have to look at as far as what the inputs are, the impacts are, and location. If Colorado wants to deal with its materials, though, we are going to have to continue to look at the impacts of transportation and try to reduce that. Everybody's not going to have an electric, Class A trucking fleet tomorrow. Things are moving positively in that direction, but what can we do now is what the CEDC looks at.
Thank you for expanding on that.
Yeah.
So now back to the textile waste statistics that we were talking about earlier. Does the percentage donated include the amount of donated clothes that make it to the landfill?
I think we need clarity on that one.
Yeah.
Well,
is that donated clothes that then don't get sold and wind up in the landfill? Then they would have turned up in the composition study, I think, which is where the disposal numbers come from. So yeah, hard to answer that question specifically. And again, just want to keep the perspective that this is a high level analysis and that, it's really intended to be more directional and not super precise.
Yeah, but I will say on the CDC, yes, it is. Thanks, Teresa. And so now here we go again with the CDC role. So we're kind of busy, if you could figure this the point. Is with textiles, we're looking at reuse is phenomenal, but what happens after that?
Right.
Who's counting it after that? What's the impact? Right? So what kind of solution do we need for that? Donation, we count it as reuse, and then we don't, ascertain what's happened from there. So again, another thing that we're looking at when we determine in textiles, what are we gonna try to solve for? Is it the end market, or is it the collection, or is it the sort? It's all of those things are factors.
Thank you. So now we have a question around the Colorado EPR bill that was passed. So while the hope there is to use more post-consumer recycled content in packaging, as shown in the report, the Colorado region around Colorado is quite limited in manufacturers. So do you feel that it's feasible to achieve this, or are there incentives in place to bring manufacturers to this region? And can you talk through a little bit of that for us?
Yeah, I'm going to grab it again. So yes, and I think we're still a little ways off, right, for the implementation of EPR, but it puts it all on the radar, right? One of the first states to pass EPR for packaging. And Cleo, you put it well. We don't have the manufacturers here tomorrow to go like bottle to bottle. We will see an increase in those materials, which is good, which allows us, and that will have data finally, right, or really good data around how much the material is and what it is. And that's an incentive for a manufacturer. But again, go back to the question we just talked about. Now they've got more input. They're going to make a product. How are they going to get that product to market, right? So again, we're coming down to transportation, collection, volumes. So it is good. It is an incentive. You know, the CEDC is hustling as quick as we can to try to get some more local markets going, market solutions going here for those materials that will rise in volume from EPR. But it's really, that really is about sustainability. And when you think about sustainability and systems mapping, there's no linear answer for that.
I think also from the policy perspective, the EPR will drive increased use of PCR in the packaging sold into Colorado, no matter where it's produced. And there's a bit of a rising tide floats all boats scenario here where, you know, the folks that are selling into Colorado will use more recycled content, which will improve markets for recycled materials and improve those opportunities. So I think that the focus on the use of recycled content by folks who are selling into Colorado will broadly help recycling markets and again, create that additional opportunity potentially within Colorado as well.
Great. All right. Well, we're 2 minutes to the hour, so I think we'll kind of end it there, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. So like we've said throughout, the webinar has been recorded and will be posted on the CEDC website, as well as our email addresses have been provided. So if you have any further questions or would like to talk more about different ideas, please reach out. And but for now, we're going to wrap it up and say goodbye. But thank you to our panelists, and thank you to RRS for conducting the report for us. And have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.